You're listening to a Pop House Network podcast for developers by developers. Welcome to Java OffHeap episode 57. Hey everyone! Hopefully you're staying warm and cozy on this holidays. My name is Freddie Guime. I'm one of the principal engineers at Expedia, Java champion, author, speaker. I'm here with my usual suspects.
Hello, everybody. Bob Paulin, independent consultant from Chicago, Apache Software Foundation member, Java champion, and the Chicago Java User Group chairman of the board.
Josh Juneau. I'm a Java EE and Jakarta EE developer and DBA by day, author and open source coder by night, Apache NetBeans committer, a JCP member, CJUG board member, and Java champion.
Michael Manella, member of the Spring R&D team at VMware, author, speaker, Java champion, curmudgeon at large.
Keeping us honest. And before we dive in, I would like to thank our sponsor, Datadock. Today's show is sponsored by Datadock, a monitoring and analytics platform that integrates with over 400 technologies, including AWS services, Dockers, and Kubernetes. Datadock's platform brings together metrics, traces, and logs in one place so you can get full visibility in your environment and improve your application performance. With machine learning-based alerts, customizable dashboards, and distributed tracing, Datadock makes it easy to unify disparate data sources so you can troubleshoot faster. Start your free Datadock trial today. Listeners of this podcast will receive a free t-shirt once you install the agent and create a one dashboard. Visit javaoffheap.com/Datadock to get started. Again, the URL is javaoffheap.com/Datadock. And we thank them for the support. They keep our video cameras recording and our mics on, bringing you the latest Java and technology news.
All right. So, Josh, I love you sporting that hat, but cheers to 2020. You can't even see my beer, but goodbye also 2020.
And good riddance.
Good riddance, right? What a year.
Mm-hmm. So we always do this episode at the end of the year, reflecting on all the stuff that happened, what's going to happen, or what we hope is going to happen in 2021.
Yeah.
But I think first to close things out, we start with our events. So I think, Josh, did you add a few events to the calendar?
I did add a few. Just wanted to make sure that people out there did not miss these events. Everything is, of course, virtual, so I'm not going to mention which are not, because they all are. And so DevNexus is the first on my list, and that's February 17th. I've got a great lineup. We're going to be part of that, I believe.
Yeah, we're going to be there.
Yes.
We'll be there.
Virtually.
But is the null pointers going to be there, Freddie?
Ooh, I'm sure that something will be arranged.
Nice. Another one to keep your eye on would be the J Champions Conference. This is a conference that will span 4 days. It starts on January 13th, goes to the 14th, and then skips to the next Monday and goes the 18th and 19th. And there are a number of sessions each day, and they're all Java champions, 24 sessions in total. So go and check that one out. If you go to jchampionsconf.com, you can check out the sessions now, the lineup. Next up is DawsCon. So happening on January 15th, right in between the J Champions Conf day off on that Friday is DawsCon. Quite a few great Java sessions there. And this is, of course, run by Dawson College and Ken Fogel. And it's been going for a number of years now, and it's a great one.
And that one's usually in Canada, right? So that's one that may be a little bit further away for folks to attend, or, you need a passport to attend usually.
I've heard in the past that speakers have actually gotten stuck there due to snowstorms. So
yeah, that's Montreal, right? I'm trying to remember. I'm pretty sure they're Quebec, but for some reason I can't remember.
I think Montreal.
Yeah. I've been there. It's nice there.
Yep. Definitely would go there someday. And then I wanted to just make a brief mention that Jakarta 2020 took place on December 8th, and the sessions are available online. You can take a look at them. So that's a good one to go and visit and learn some new stuff.
Cool.
All right.
So next up is, I think, the news, unless anybody else has any more events.
I think that's it. I know. I think there was an ApacheCon in China too recently. A virtual one of those. Just in retrospect,
Nice.
It was very highly attended. Trying to look for the link to that. But as for events, yeah, everything's been online. We've had a few good ones this year. Like we had the what is it? The dev. Shoot, I'm forgetting the one we had in Chicago. JConf.dev. That's right.
Yeah.
Yep.
Weren't you an organizer for that conference?
Yeah, I just can't remember the name of it.
It doesn't roll off the tongue for sure. I've forgotten it.
Spring one was a big hit this year virtually. Had about 10 times the attendance we normally would have had. So.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I know. I attended a few sessions this year. I mean, why not?
Nice.
Nice. J-Love also, I guess, was good. I unfortunately missed it, but I heard that it was a good one.
Yeah, no, they're actually, so J-Love, I believe, is actually sponsoring a spatial year-end CJUG event that we're doing on Thursday, tomorrow. Kind of an interesting concept on the whole conference chat is spatial chat. I don't know if you guys have ever looked at that, but like you basically have an icon and you can place it anywhere in this virtual room, and then what you hear is based on your proximity to the people that you put your icon by. So
Glenn was saying they just tried it with AJUG last night and said it was interesting.
Yeah, no. So I have not done it. I just heard. I know some of the other CJUG folks that were experimenting before tomorrow's event. No, they said it was interesting. It was good. We're going to have some folks. I believe both Pratik and the Blevinses were committed to showing up to that thing. So it should be a fun occasion. So we'll see how that goes. And I'm intrigued enough that I'm going to probably check it out just to see how the whole spatial chat thing goes. But
drop in and have a drink and
chat. In. That's right. That's right. So we'll see.
Sounds good. Should we move on to news then?
Yes.
Yeah. So I'll start off with the first one, and that is that Jakarta EE 9 has been released. So this thing is released, I believe, the same day that Jakarta 1 occurred here in the December 18th, just a couple of days ago, actually. So, Jakarta EE 9 release is basically around the namespace changes. The website has had a complete overhaul. You can see that I'll try and share my screen here and show you exactly the different specifications that are part of the Jakarta EE 9 release. So we've got a number of them. Of course, the profiles, you've got these not so well-known specs as well, like activation, annotations, and then, of course, we got Jakarta batch and bean validation and concurrency. Quite a big release, and this all revolves around the namespace change. So the Big Bang has now taken effect, and when you code against Jakarta EE 9, you're going to be using the Jakarta namespace. So this is all going to be good stuff. There are some changes you're going to have to make, and lots of the big change will be coming with the server, vendors, of course, container vendors and tool chain makers and IDE vendors. But I think our code should be relatively easy to change. There are quite a few nice tools out there to help us.
And I think all the ones that you mentioned that are like, hey, I've never heard of this, are the ones that used to be in the JDK. I believe activation and annotations were one of those ones that were embedded that got removed with 9. So now they're on their own. So you notice them. You have to include them.
Exactly.
So just to pair into one of the other ones on that list, I recently got the push from Eclipse for the IDE upgrade. And the new Eclipse upgrade for 12 so they do one every 3 months. now requires Java 11. And that was my prompt to finally flip my desktop default Java home to 11. It's like, all that stuff is gone now just the regular Java command line and everything like that. And it's like, I have a lot of my client projects already using the new, like on Java 11 now, but having my personal desktop moved over was a little bit of an experience.
It's a big jump.
It is. So, but
hey,
yeah,
well,
for those that are Eclipse users, 12 is out. You probably already got an automatic notification to upgrade, and it was pretty smooth for me. So,
is there something
complaints there?
Is there something like SDK Man for Windows, or I assume SDK Man does not work for Windows?
There's Chocolately, but it's.
I don't use it.
Yeah, okay. Like in Windows, I think that what I've been doing on my home computer is just going to Ubuntu for Windows Linux system. Mm-hmm. So that runs the Java side of the house. IntelliJ runs on Windows fine, and that sort of like helped me cope with it. At work, I still use Sigwin. I haven't bite the bullet and do WSL yet, but
I've been using a Mac now for a decade and at least, and SDK Man makes managing JDK so easy.
Yeah. In WSL, I use SDK Man.
Yeah.
One more thing to mention, since we talked about Java 11 here, Bob. Jakarta EE 9 out of the gate is JDK 8. That kind of rhymes, doesn't it? Out of the gate is JDK 8. But actually, Jakarta EE 9.1, which will be coming out soon, and I don't have a date for you. I apologize about that. This is going to be targeted for Java 11. So,
are you required to use 11 with 9.1?
I don't know that it's required or if it's just going to be an option.
Yeah, it would surprise me if they up the baseline like that on a point release like that.
I don't think that they will.
Okay.
And to be honest with you, I've been kind of out of the loop with the latest of what's going on. But I do know that, 9.1 will be coming out, I think, within the next couple of months here, and it is targeted for JDK 11 support. And then, of course, Jakarta EE 10 is, I believe, targeting towards Q3 of 2021.
Mm-hmm. In terms of the IDEs, there is also, IntelliJ released their 2020.3.
Yep.
And I guess NetBeans also got an update. So, wow.
Yeah,
all IDEs are out.
They're all sporting new features. So IntelliJ, just to give you a couple of updates on that, they've got, they got some new reader mode. I'm just looking at the website, so just bear with me here because I am not really an IntelliJ user. I do, of course, use it sometimes to look at the features and whatnot, but they've got a Linux emoji picker. That's pretty cool. Search everywhere updates.
Critical features.
Some editor updates, drag and drop tabs, pin tab improvements, setting IntelliJ Idea as the default application for opening files. That's kind of cool. Multiple files per template, debugger. They've got some inline watch changes.
Oh, nice.
Some better debugging for Gradle. Profiler enhancements, some Git enhancements. So it looks like a pretty big update. And they've got for Java conversion of records. That's kind of cool.
That's cool.
And full support for sealed classes. So that's kind of nice. And of course, one of the reasons I like IntelliJ is Kotlin, of course. And so they've got some new Kotlin features as well. So check that one out, 2020.3.
Yeah.
Seems like all of the IDEs have flipped to the train release to go along with the JDK. They're all released at the same time.
I think so, yeah.
Josh Long probably won't like the fact that they added the Linux emoji picker before they removed the ability to disable the ASCII art on Spring Boot apps.
He always brings it up almost like
he does.
every I think there's a Josh Long edition. There's just a bill for him where that is not there.
Just real quick on the NetBeans 12.2, the new features, they've got some new JDK 14 and 15 specific language features, including code coloring and auto-completion for seal type, code formatting for seal type. They do have some JavaFX enhancements and PHP and JavaScript, of course, and a couple of others. So that's another one to take a look at. That's not an LTS release. Just kind of a point release.
All right. So I think that's all we had for news, right? So the rest of this episode is dedicated to all of our backwards looking and forwards looking statements, right?
Yeah.
So so what the heck happened in 2020?
I don't remember.
Can I get another drink?
Yeah.
Is it just me or did 2020, is it flying by? I don't know if it's just a blur.
Maybe just for you, Josh.
I don't know. It just seems
still
like
not over.
It's probably because I'm not leaving the house. The days are just blurred into one.
Yeah. Definitely felt that.
Yeah.
But I mean, I guess, two of the good things from the Java side of the house is they still did their 2 releases. So, I mean, they released Java 14 and 15 on time. So, I mean, this train release thing is still working.
Yeah.
To be honest, I haven't upgraded any of my clients to 14 or 15 yet. Is anybody else going to admit to doing that, or no? Is that not the thing?
Spring's fully supports 15.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, no, it's one of those where even like it's the libraries that we're worried about, but yeah, like we can have the choice, but I'm always so hesitant. Like if there's something compelling on 15 just yet, not yet. But
so does that mean you'll move to 17?
Yeah, 17 is something that I do look forward to. So.
That's what I figured.
I really think that's when everybody's going to start moving up is when 17 comes out. Those people that are still on 8 are going to move to 11, and then everybody else is going to move to 17, right?
Honestly, I'm waiting to see what's in there just to say is it the large leap. I mean, obviously 8 to 11, there's a lot of I want to call it almost like infrastructure type things, because there's things that were removed from the JDK, one-time things where you're messing with your build process, you're messing with your dependencies, not necessarily your code so much, but all the things that go into it.
No, I mean, it's interesting because like the things that I like, if I need to go back to 8, like on a project that I'm working on, the thing that immediately I miss is like there's a lot of collection utilities that were added that that are on 11 that are not on 8, and that's the first thing that I trip myself over. It's like the use of bar, like that one is it's cute to have it, but it doesn't bother me as much as some of the Java like embedded libraries are the ones that actually I miss, and the inability for me to upgrade to certain versions of like dependencies that are like whatever it is. I think Spring is very good, so that we usually don't have to worry about that one. But like if we're doing some AWS stuff that are that are bound to 11, we need to just use the older libraries, and that hurts.
Yeah, no, I mean, for all of the things that were introduced this year, I mean, none of the upgrade paths looked too challenging. I mean, going from 13, 11, it's once you get to 11,
it feels that it's fine. Yeah, I agree.
Mental changes.
Yeah, the Java X namespace was tough, but after that and modules, most of this stuff is fine. So go, Josh.
On the next one.
Yep.
Java moving to GitHub.
Finally. You know what's funny? I actually just deleted Mercurial off my PC because there is absolutely no reason for me to have that on there other than that's what.
There was one reason before. Now there's 0 reasons.
That
I can remember when Mercurial was the big thing.
Yeah, 90 problems, but that isn't one.
Wow. Wow. No, that is one of like taking some time off work and that'll be sort of like a fun part, just poking around, see code around, figure out how they did certain things. So that's kind of nice.
It's cool because it opens up the idea of contributing to the JDK to a lot bigger audience.
Mm-hmm.
Like, giving the people that access, you think of, there's probably a good, I hate to use the word generation because that sounds really old, but there's a whole, group of people that are like, everything before Git didn't exist from an SVN perspective because Git's now been around long enough where like SVN, Mercurial, Perforce, all those.
Visual source safe.
Exactly. Clear case, natural clear case, all that stuff. I mean, like none of those exist because like for about the past decade, everything has been Git.
Mm-hmm.
And so like the idea that you're going to bring in something else to play with the JDK. Yep. Nope. Non-starter. Not going to learn another SV source control tool just to do that. So like, I mean, even on the Spring team, us moving our issue tracker from Jira to GitHub, we've all seen improvements with regards to engagement on that kind of thing. So I think it was great to see that this happened. And I think it'll be a good thing for the JDK. It's nice to see that they're taking community engagement as seriously as they are. So, Java moving to GitHub, even like the Graal JIT compiler, like one of the drivers for that was to rewrite a JIT compiler in Java so people that write Java could actually engage in it.
Yeah, no, I remember.
Like, from a community perspective. And like, it's good to see those kinds of efforts and that kind of motivation there. Because it would be nice to just have more people involved at that level.
Yeah, and I think they're coming out, or at least there's some representation. Like Martin is almost like the liaison of the community with some of the JVM folks, and I still remember that blood was spilled for this decision. Like even though like it looks so non-controversial now, like if you go to like the mailing lists, like people were going, no, we should stay on Mercurial, no, we should move to GitHub, no, we should do Git with mirroring, like it's kind of nice to see like it's settled down, the world didn't end, we can move on.
Yeah, and just having the UI there in front of it where you can just search the code base without downloading the whole thing on your desktop, it's hard to understate that because there's so many code bases that I work with where it's just so easy just to go to the web page, type in the search bar something that you're looking for, and just immediately it's right there.
Yep.
Versus, hey, let's pull down all the files. Let's search through all the files. Oh, it's not in this version. Let's get the right version checked. I mean, having all of that information in search, having all of it seamlessly built into a UI, I do think that is going to, like what Michael said, open it up to an audience that may not have otherwise looked at any of this if it would have stayed on Mercurial.
Yep.
Now moving to GitHub issues.
Yeah. We'll see about that. If
anybody's listening,
baby steps.
If anybody's listening, the Spring team's got tools. We could probably help you.
All right. Next up. So the Google Oracle Supreme Court case, it was finally heard. We talked about this in episode 1 and it finally happened. I listened to some of it. Definitely worried.
It's not rosy. Yeah.
If you listen to the justices and the questions they were asking, I'm not feeling good about this one at this point. And I don't know when we'll get actually a read on it. of where they're leaning, or if it'll just, hey, here's the opinion, it'll just drop one day. But yeah, that is something that happened and something to look forward to, I guess.
Yeah.
Or not look forward
Or
to in
not,
2021.
right?
I guess we'll see.
Yep.
Yeah.
Hoping for a narrow ruling.
TBD.
Yeah. No, hoping for, if it's a negative ruling, at least a narrow one.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, we'll see what kind of Congress we have next year to take up any sort of legislation around this. It's not optimistic.
Yep. Yep.
You're talking about the same legislative body that we had to deal with. What was it, SOPA and PIPA, or were those the
it hasn't changed terribly dynamically, I guess.
No, it hasn't. It hasn't. So, as messed up as this is going to sound, I put more faith in the Supreme Court, at least ruling, even if they rule against Google, keeping it narrow, like not upending the world.
They're trying to use legislative.
Exactly. Yeah. Then Congress getting this right.
What's an iPod?
Yeah, the thing that still scares me is the question, and one of the things we talked about on the show was just the outpouring of amicus briefs from people in computer science explaining why copywriting APIs is bad. So, I mean, just so many people pouring out there, and to hear the Supreme Court justice be like, well, you said all this stuff was going to be terrible if we left this federal ruling in place. The world hasn't ended. It's like, it hasn't, but they haven't heard from you guys
loading
yet.
the guns. Yeah, I think they were just waiting.
Yeah. That's kind of the way I feel. So I'm hoping they have enough presence to understand that them ruling on it is very different than the federal appeals court ruling on it. So
I wonder, how did you get to file an amicus brief? Maybe we should file one. But
I honestly, I don't think I think we could.
Yeah,
I don't know that they'd read it, but we probably could.
Well, I think they have to, right? I mean, it's now reading it versus actually caring about what we said are two very different things. Like, it will be entered into the record kind of thing.
Oh, gosh. That'd be
might
amazing.
be a little late to the game. I mean, they've already heard
four lackey programmers probably aren't going to sway the highest court in the land.
Oh, you don't know.
Hey, look at the election. There are expressways to the Supreme Court. So, I mean, we just have to figure out a way to make this between states.
Take the fast train. Wow.
Is it original domain? I don't remember what was most recent election. Craziness.
Oh, right. Right. The other one is interesting. Eclipse taking over the spec world, and that's in retrospect, it's been a huge year for Eclipse Foundation, right?
Yeah. So the Eclipse Foundation, a number of things there. So to your point, they've been taking over the spec world. They really seem like the place where, if you're going to start up a spec, that's where people are going.
People are starting to gravitate.
Yeah, you see all kinds of working groups being started up in Eclipse. It actually seems to be kind of their new business model almost is working with these working groups and the funding aspects to that. I mean, you see, there's the ASCII doc working group that's been started. Obviously, Jakarta Jakarta could kind of open that door. Working groups in general. I mean, even they're talking about doing other ones. Is
this a snub for the JCP, which used to be the only body where you do Java related stuff, or is it just now there's an alternative and
I don't think so. And the reason I say that is because I think it's different from creating just a standard versus adding it to the JDK. And I think there's a fundamental difference there. And Eclipse, they've got Jakarta, but the JCP always felt like adding it to the language or adding it, I get Jakarta. I get it that Java EE was technically not adding it to the language, but it was close enough where people felt the same, or the broader community did. So, I always felt there was a higher bar for that. Like if I was actually going to do that.
I see. So it's almost like you do want some kind of spec governance. You don't want some kind of process, but you don't want everything and the kitchen sink that JCP offers you in terms of making it an actual JSR that people will search by name and implement, right?
Well, not even that. It's just the fact that like I don't want to add it to Java. Like I don't want to have to require every implementation of Java to. I just feel like the bar is higher to add it to the language than it would be just to standardize on any concepts like that. Or is like I'm trying to blank. Help me out here, guys. Other standards bodies like that are Java specific.
ACM?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, IEEE. It feels more like that.
Yeah, I mean, I think they filled a void, where one was needed, and I think that's part of the reason for their success is that this is overdue. I think people are looking at it as a little bit more independent than the JCP. While the JCP was separate, it was also not separate from Oracle. So I think having a separate foundation actually gives a little bit more of a look and feel of a even playing ground, whether that even playing ground is still paying members. But if you're paying into the pot, it's not like somebody's going to sit there and veto you because they created the pot. So you've got at least that kind of level playing ground. I'm starting to see things even outside of Java, I think, is even going there. I mean, you see their whole IoT portfolio. I mean, they are making headway into industry collaboration where, some of these other players are kind of specialized in the academic angle. Like they're all looking at this as like there are academic pricing and things like that within Eclipse, but it's really focused on getting the industry players to work together.
I mean, on the Java side, even adopt OpenJDK. That's it.
That's a huge.
You get on the JDK size.
Yeah, no, that's a huge project for them to be taking on.
Right.
Yeah.
So I mean, they've got both SE and EE under one umbrella as far as that goes. But also another big thing that happened for the Eclipse Foundation this year is they moved.
Yeah,
or are in the process of moving. They moved from their legal entity from Canada to Belgium. Or are in the process of. I don't think I talked to Mike on Monday, and I don't know if they've got the royal decree yet. I should have asked. But yeah, so they're actually moving their legal entity to Europe. I guess the majority of members are in Europe, and Europe in general is just a more spec interested corner of the world. Like if there's not a spec for it, a lot of European companies won't use it. Whereas in the US and North America, they'll use any open source project, that they can grab. So I definitely understand the motivation. So it'll be interesting to watch that come too.
Yeah, and I guess you want to be close to your the majority of your players are from that side, and that's interesting to like why is that? Like why is it Europe? Like it always feels that a lot of the Java involvement does come from Europe. Like is it just that there's few but big players in the US and that's just how it is? And
from a spec perspective, like I said, in Europe, Java EE or Jakarta EE is more popular than it is in the US. Like they are really big on the standards. I never got a reason, but it's just the way it is.
I guess the question I'd ask, and not having done, so I've worked collaboratively with people from Europe, but not at the level where we're picking this framework or that framework, and this one's the spec, so we're choosing that over the other one. Like as a language, Java seems like a more spec-heavy language than some of the other languages. I'm wondering if that same behavior is European. If they're into Rust or they're into Go. Those languages I don't think have quite as many specifications as Java does. Does that play out the same? I guess maybe this is the wrong group to be asking it to. We're all JVM folks, but I've heard that sentiment about Europe being more spec heavy, but I'm curious if that plays out in other languages that aren't as spec focused.
We'll have to get someone on to talk about that.
We should. Maybe that's for 2021. Let's get somebody from overseas.
Yeah. Cool.
We're all remote now for the foreseeable future. So
it should be really easy to get guests. We should do that.
We're just lazy. All right. That's on me.
The next item here that I just wanted to throw out there for discussion was Jakarta EE 9. So now we finally had, at the end of last year, 2019, gotten Jakarta EE 8 release, which was huge because now that's the first open source version of Java EE under the new Eclipse Jakarta EE umbrella. And now we've done the namespace change. So all of the hard, major, heavy lifting of changing from Java EE of old to Jakarta EE, the new realm, is now over, and we can start to move forward. So I think this is where things start to get really interesting with Jakarta EE.
So you're right. It'll be interesting. Just pulling up. So 8 was an infrastructure move. Pick up EE8 or EE7 shifted
from
to
JCP to
JCP to. Was it 7 or was it 7 or was there an EE8? I forget.
There was EE8.
There was an EE8. Okay, yeah. So there's an EE8.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, but EE8 was still the one that managed it, right?
Oracle,
and there was no. Wait, what?
EE8 came out under Oracle still. Java EE8.
And then there was Jakarta EE8.
Yeah, then we went to Jakarta EE8, and that was the infrastructure.
That's right.
change.
That's right.
Yes.
That's right. Okay. Cool. Yeah, it's just the only reason I bring up the who is doing what and when is it'll be nice to see finally
breaking new ground.
Start moving forward again, because now you've done 2 releases that functionally are exactly the same. Like one was an infrastructure move and one was changing package names. Like that's it for both of them. So it's the industry's moving ahead. He's going to have some a good amount of work out of him to catch up. But the
interesting part is, like, isn't the individual specs still like evolving on their own, or they still have to move in tandem with the umbrella?
They can't release outside of the umbrella.
I think it's still going to be an umbrella release, but I think they can. They could technically go to JSF, 3, or 3.1. It would be now if they wanted to, next week or whatever, a month from now, and they could release. And you could go and download it separately, but it wouldn't be part of the umbrella release, which will be Jakarta 10.
I see. So progress of like it's not like everything stopped. Like the individuals, like for those that are like parts of the umbrella spec, they can still do stuff, but nobody has put the work.
But back up a minute though. So like the JSF thing, JSF's a spec. It's not an implementation. So you could, even if they were to do exactly what you described, no developer could use it yet because nobody would have implemented it yet. Right?
Well, you could download it and you could play with it, I think.
Maybe with reference implementation, assuming that's there.
Right. With the reference implementation. I mean, if you downloaded that, you could take out you could put the jar files in for the new JSF after you've compiled it on your machine, and you can start using it, in your code if you wanted to, because you just have to swap out the jars, right? Take out the JSF 3 and put in JSF 3.1 that you've compiled on your machine, or downloaded, if they put it into Maven Central.
It's not even a Maven.
No, it's.
I don't think
because it's not intended to be distributed that way. It's going to be distributed as part of the platform. It's the app server. That's
okay.
So you'd have to download it and compile it and
build it on your own. Yeah, unless there's something you really need.
I was gonna say.
That's a high bar. Okay, fine.
Yeah, very high.
Yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. It's going to be nice to see things moving forward. And like you said, Michael, it'll be interesting to see how the community reacts to this. Is it too far gone now? Are we too far behind with Java EE? Is everybody now on Spring and Peloton and all these other, things?
So I want to be clear, I hate it when people bring up the Spring versus Jakarta argument, because it's not an either or. It never was, and it never will be. Like, we use servlets, we use JMS, we use transaction. Like, there's a laundry list of technologies built into Spring, or that Spring uses,
that are part of the spec, right?
That are standardized pieces. And personally, I still believe that standardization makes sense for infrastructure components, so HTTP and whatnot. So, the idea that this industry could move with them, I don't believe in that. I do think, though, that there are some corners of the specs that that I personally was never really a real fan of, or am not now. The frameworky type ones, and those are the ones. It's like, okay, now you haven't had movement in 4 years, and the equivalent outside of that spec have continued to move forward. They've evolved. They've had new features, new capabilities.
Sure.
Why would you pick those?
That's interesting. For example, is there any maybe there doesn't need to be an answer, because we're probably going to talk a little bit about that. But for example, for the reactive programming, right? So the idea of doing sort of just reactive. I don't know if Jakarta has thought or has any utility or standards for implementing reactive or anything like that.
I believe that it has
no
been
spec in there right
discussed, but there's nothing. Yeah, no spec in there right now. But
which
there's
I
Reactive
think
Foundation. There's Reactive Foundation, though, which is a bunch of other necessary specs, but projects closer to the CNCF than Jakarta. But it's got things like RSocket, it's got R2DVC, reactive streams. And reactive streams actually is that's a spec. So that's implemented by multiple frameworks. I don't think RSocket or R2DVC. I don't think RSocket is. R2DVC, though, is also a spec. So that's something that multiple database vendors implement.
Sure.
So it's just not under the Jakarta umbrella.
I see. Yeah. No, I was thinking for servlets and stuff like that with your post and get, if you have the ability to implement it reactively. But yeah, no, interesting question. And I don't know, I'll bring it up again on once we talk on the 2021 things, because I think that reactive might be in danger of not being the right thing anymore.
We'll talk about it.
Yep. I know where you're looking.
Yeah. So let's get there. Let's move through this stuff.
Let's finish out our topic. So the next one is the most obvious thing. Is we've all been under quarantine. We're in a pandemic, and what is the impact been on that? For us, conference goers, we already talked a little bit about the spatial chat and whether that makes sense. Even going to conferences in general, there's only been a few that I know I've gone to. What's been the impact of the pandemic on folks in this room?
It's interesting, because the one thing it's having that essentially hallway track, you can feel a little bit of a pulse on what is up and coming. And it's not that you cannot get it, but it's something that now you have to be more you have to go out and reach out to people and try to hey, what's going on over there? Where before it was just you walk down, it's and then you talk with somebody from one of the big companies, oh yeah, we're doing this, and they're excited about it, right? So sometimes you get all these things. I remember, for example, when Microsoft it started to play nice with Java, right? That happened 2 years ago. And we started hearing the rumors was at the conferences. It's no, we love Java developers. We want them to run their stuff in our cloud, and all these things happen as we were going to conferences, speaking at conference and talking to folks. Now, I feel that there might be an undercurrent of things that are happening, but it has to be closer to the surface or closer to the announcements for us to perceive it. So that's definitely a change where the grapevine is not there anymore, or is a shallower grapevine.
And that same, I think, topic or theme kind of rolls over to work as well. I mean, I used to work from home one day a week. I've not been to work, for work since, March. It's been since St. Patrick's Day, So, that kind of has changed a lot too, because your day-to-day activity, you really have to reach out to people. It's not like people are just going to come down the hallway and you start talking to them about something, or somebody's going to see you and say, hey, I remember I was going to ask you this. You really have to I've got a list of things, every day that I do. I've got to go down and remember everything, and so you have to reach out. I keep chat, with a handful of people every day. I talk to them, even if nothing else, just to say hi, just to try and keep that flow going. It's the same type of discussion.
Yeah, no, for me, it's been a couple of things. So on the work front, the day-to-day things, I and my entire team have worked remote, for forever, right? I've been part of the spring team for over 8 years, and I've been working remote that entire time. What's been different for all of us on the distributed team is not that what we do has changed drastically, like everybody else on this call. What's changed has been we're not alone. Like, I now have my wife and daughter in my house all day long. So I've got more distractions. I've got more interactions. I've got, other things happening all day long that I didn't have before. It's been both a blessing and a curse, right? It's distractions for what I'm working on. But on the other hand, I can tell you it has been awesome the number of times I have seen my fellow colleagues' kids come in on calls and they hop in maps and it is just awesome to see. I remember the guy who did the CNN interview and the kid walked in on him and it was like, don't do that. Like, don't do that. No, do that. It is awesome. I love it every time I see it. I've got one guy on the spring team. He had a baby earlier this year, and it tends to spit up a lot. And we've had calls where he's in the middle of a stand up, he's giving his status and right in the middle of the call. And it's just but I'm crazy, but I think that's cool. I think it's cool that
it is
we
fun.
are exactly. It's who we all are. It's just getting to know each other better as far as that kind of thing. Yeah, that's on the work side. On the conference side, like Bob said, I've only been to one conference this year. It was DevNexus back in February.
You didn't know better.
I miss my hugs
even more.
I miss my hugs.
Gosh, I have so many to give.
Seriously, I miss. There's a lot. I'm an introvert. So I don't have a lot of friends that I hang out with, at home. That's just who I am. And so I've joked with the wife almost the entire time that I was kind of made for this. It's not like I'm the social butterfly and I'm going out the party. Yeah, this is what I do every day anyways. But what I do miss is those that week or the extended weekend or whatever, when I go to see all of you or the spring team or, the other people that work at other companies, Tommy Tribe and so forth. And seeing all those people, the David Blevins and all those, and I miss you guys, man. I do.
I know.
It's it wasn't, to be honest, it wasn't until spring 1 where it really hit me.
Yeah.
Because I would have done a couple other smaller events in between then, but spring 1 is the one time the entire team gets together for the spring team. It's the only time of the year that happens. And it was virtual this year. And it was weird. And it was just, don't get me wrong. The conference itself was a huge success, but for us as a team, it was weird. And so, like I said, I miss my hugs.
I know. That part of the pandemic has just completely thrown me off. Because I am the extrovert of the group, right? So being able to the worst part is this is going to change for even if we go back to whatever it is, hugs are not normal anymore.
Or people are going to be handshaking like they used to.
Yeah, no, they're
everyone's hand,
fist bump, and it's
Yeah,
Once everybody gets a shot, I want my hugs back.
Yeah. You might be one of the few, but yeah. So
now, granted, I'll ask to see proof that you got the shot.
yeah, it's like
see your card.
I mean, we talked about it on the pre-show. Once 3 of us get the shot, we can go back to the roundhouse. We've got herd immunity on OffHeap.
One of us, yeah, we consider the show survives.
Lone Survivor, isn't that a show?
Yeah,
that's a different type of show than we're going for, but
survival of the fittest.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh! But yeah, no, I mean, it is true. It's interesting because I think it woken up companies to the idea that at least for the companies that are technology bound, that this actually works. Like, you know, a lot of companies are like, no, never work from home because you can lose productivity and stuff. But once
VMware was one like that.
Hmm?
VMware was like that.
Yeah.
This has been a huge shift for VMware. They were a 100% office driven company, and they have accelerated the move to remote, and they're doing all kinds of efforts to do that. In fact,
this is VMware.
I mean, but it's
virtual
interesting.
is in the name.
Yeah, right.
But Pat, our CEO, you know, he meets with other CEOs, and you know, he's heard from, you know, a number of them that, you know, from, you know, startups all the way to 100-year-old companies, like, we're not going back. Like, this is when it comes to the way we work, this is you're never going to see the way we worked before. Like, it's just not going to happen.
And that kind of leads into the next thing that we were talking about, is just the implications of all that. I mean, you've got companies that are moving.
Well, no, it's so funny, right?
Executives that are moving.
Well, I think
like
there's more to this than just
like,
that.
Oh, there absolutely is. But I do believe that this has enabled that to happen with a much lower bar than would have ever been possible.
Yeah, no, a lot of it is
not happened.
It's there's no stigma, right? Like, and I think that
So really quick, wait, can we actually qualify what we're talking about?
Yeah, I mean, specifically, you know, we've got like Elon Musk of Tesla and SpaceX moving to Texas, I believe it is. Yep. You've got Larry Ellison moving out of California to Texas, and even on a broader scale of non-executive. I look on Twitter and you just see people moving from, you know, basically the Valley back to other places, because it's like, we're all remote. Why am I living in the Valley?
But so back up. This is more than just people. This is companies are moving.
Companies, yes.
Like Oracle, exactly. Tesla, HP. Like, these are all major tech companies that are moving. Quite frankly, they're almost all moving to one spot: Texas, Austin. So Austin is slowly becoming the new Silicon Valley. Like, they were, you know, if you looked outside of the Valley, you probably had 2 major hubs in tech in the country, which are New York and Austin. Mm-hmm. Austin is by far a much cheaper market.
Until Oracle and HP. It's like you have like this balancing beam, and everybody says, "Let's go to the other side." It's like,
yeah, I'm curious to see what happens, because I mean, it's not even just necessarily technology. I've talked to people in finance that are leaving New York, and again, it's Texas, it's places, lower cost places, and some of it's taxes, some of it's just cost of living. I mean, there's various drivers to it, but the fact that people are working remotely, and, you know, the location doesn't have to be where the people are anymore, have, I think, enabled it to say, well, what best fits, you know, our corporate structure or our tax structure, or our, you know, where we see growth. You know, you don't have those things tied down anymore.
Well, and it's interesting that you know, we assume cost is one of them, but then you have companies like Reddit who are saying they're going to pay U.S. employees all the same regardless of where they live.
That's different. Yeah.
Right. It's like the opposite of what we're talking about, right? Talk about companies moving to cheap location, probably to save money. There's there's a number of reasons for that. Regulatory is probably another reason to move to Texas.
Yeah, that's probably more of the
But like then you've got companies like Reddit, now granted a much, much smaller company than any of the other ones we're talking about, are saying that they're going to pay everybody San Francisco rates.
Wow! Because
good luck with that.
Well, so it is interesting to just like chart like what happened, right? Like because I think it's kind of funny how like in a way capitalism works, where the very first part was okay, everybody works remote in March, then everybody's starting to work remote. And then suddenly people start moving out. Like, they're, I'm going to return to, my parents' house. I'm going to move back to, middle of nowhere because it didn't matter. Then, like, I sort of still remember when, like, Facebook gave the order that, okay, you get a freebie this year, but next year, we're just going to rate adjust you to whatever you're living.
There's the flip side.
Yeah.
Glad you brought that up because I was going to if you didn't.
So that I didn't realize, because every company I can think of that I've ever been involved with, like that would have automatically happened regardless. Just if you're moving, they're going to reevaluate your salary.
Yeah, no, and I think that, well, the thing is like if you're, yeah, I guess so, because a lot of people, what they're doing is like they sort of like quote unquote kept their address and they just moved because I guess they didn't know how long this quarantine was going to be, right? But some people outright, they sold their property, they moved to somewhere else. And the interesting part was after seeing that, how did now suddenly the companies realizing, oh yeah, this work from home remote thing is working for everybody. The company's still around. And now the companies are the one who are looking at, why am I paying for being here in San Francisco? Yeah. It's like, well, that can be apparently Texas, but this doesn't work if everybody goes to Texas. If all roads lead to Texas, you got the same San Francisco there.
Not if you enable the remote aspect though. Not if your employees don't need to be there. So like the corporate headquarters can be in one spot, yet your employees can be everywhere. Think of Boeing's headquarters is in Chicago. I got news for you. The majority of Boeing's employees don't live in Chicago.
It's where they live
closer to you, Freddie.
Yeah, it's where the revenue gets recognized and gets taxed.
Yeah.
So I mean, again, looking back structurally at tax implications and what your company gets taxed on at what rate, suddenly it's like, well, I'm going to go find a spot where I don't have to pay as much taxes and locate my business there.
If I don't have to follow the talent,
I'm going to,
which is then I can do that. Just like the talent wants to do that, there's no reason I can't either, as well as the corporation.
So it's interesting because the one thing I'll say is that there is a limit on the geographical distribution where you'd have to share time zones. So I believe there's definitely a decrease in productivity where the experiment starts failing when you're trying to, for example, coordinate like APAC times and US times. Like
you realize you're talking to a guy who manages people from Tokyo to Warsaw the long way around.
I don't envy you, but it's hard. So you're going to agree with me on this.
There are challenges, yes. With that being said, but you can do it. I mean, like, isn't GitHub a 100% remote company? I think they are.
I don't know. I mean, everybody is right now, so it's hard to discriminate. Before, no, I know what you're saying. Yeah, I'm not sure. And would your company is still, especially if you're one of these transitional companies that are moving to this, you're not going to just suddenly be distributed. It's still most of your employees are likely co-located for a time. But the question is, if we end up getting back to more in-person things, is there going to be a backlash where it's like, okay, well, corporate moved to Texas. I'm still in California. I was used to being around during the
Yeah.
The planning sessions and involved in these conversations, which are now not virtual again.
You have to assume though that these companies they're not doing this in a vacuum, right? They're not completely ignoring that we're leaving our workforce. If the workforce isn't supportive of this, we're going to be in a bit of a bind. You can't replace like an Oracle size workforce. You can't replace an HP size workforce or even a Tesla size workforce overnight. So like if they were doing this with actual concerns that people weren't going to be supportive of this move, I've got a hunch they wouldn't do it.
Yeah, I really think that a lot of companies are going to adopt a strategy where they've always got a Zoom call going for every meeting. Now, of course, that's not going to happen for the walk-by meeting that occurs, right? That's the thing that we miss now being remote. But every standard scheduled meeting, I think, is going to have call-ins.
It's interesting because, the experiment starts breaking down the moment that you decided to go back to how things were in the pre-pandemic, or at least not necessarily breaking down, but it is going to become harder. Like if you sort of have this mix of people going to the office and people working remote, then you're going to have, I think there's a possibility where you can have like the stigma of, that's the remote guy again.
I've actually had this debate with people locally about schools, about hybrid schooling, where some people are remote and some people are in the classroom, and because
kids are so transparent.
well, the thing is we've had a lot of people pushing to get at least somebody back in person in school over the past however many months, and my response to them have all been that I don't think you understand what you're asking for. Like, if you don't put everybody in the same classroom, everybody
you're creating outliers.
Well, that's the thing is you can't do it that way. The only way to keep everybody even if they're in the classroom, is you have to treat them remote. So like right now people are complaining that my kid's staring at an iPad all day because that's the way they learn. Well, if you only have half the kids in the classroom and the other half are still staring at that iPad, the right way, and I've even talked to teachers on how they're doing this, is to make the kids in the classroom stare at the iPad as well and still go through the mechanism. So it doesn't improve the situation as far as that goes. But like that's what you end up with. When you end up with these hybrid situations, is you end up, the only practical way to keep everybody on the same page is to treat everybody as though they're remote. So even if all four of us were sitting next to each other, we would still all be on doing it this way, because that's the only way that everybody communicates in the same way with the same limitations, so that nothing gets passed or missed.
It was interesting because I was hearing this NPR episode where they're trying to do studies, because there's data now coming in on how bad has the pandemic affected education, because there's a standardized test that all schools are forced to take, and there was a group of researchers that were looking at it, and what they came out is, yes, it's definitely not what you expect if people were going to class, but the thing that they said is not as bad as it thought it was going to be. Like they say that I think one of them was better than the other, either math or reading. But like one of the indicators was like not necessarily no change, and I think it was math. It was like it was still a little bit less than what would you expect to get if everybody was just going to physical school. Reading was, I think, a little bit lower the scores, actually more. It was lower the scores than what they got for math this year compared to last year. But they say they were hopeful that the quote unquote the damage from being remote is not as permanent or as bad as we thought it was going to be for schooling.
I think it's going to depend on the sample. I mean, if you're actually measuring kids that are still being standardized testing, I don't think my kids have taken a standardized test since they've been in this remote situation. Mine. So you're measuring a school that's still doing standardized testing. So you're probably have a very biased sample for that study. Yeah. And I haven't looked at the study, but based on what I see in Illinois, you don't have any Illinois schools in that sample. So I would be skeptical. I would be, no, I have not heard of my kids doing any standardized testing whatsoever.
My kids aren't, and actually we would not allow ours to go in because the plans we've heard for standardized tests are for them to go back in, and we aren't comfortable with that. So like you wouldn't even get our daughter included in that
in the sample. Yeah. No,
but also I think exactly you said. And I also think it depends. Like you can't say that what you're describing from first grade to 12, like that there's no way you can make that statement that broadly. Like my daughter, my daughter is in first grade. So I'm going to be blunt. She's struggling. Like not from, simple things like besides my wife and me, like she hasn't really hung out with anybody else since March, occasional with my in-laws, and that's about it. And like at 7 years old, like, no, yeah. That's rough. Mm-hmm. Also just the fact, the level of instruction and feedback that you get, taking a fifth grader and comparing it to a first grader. Fifth grader's been doing this for 4 years already. They get the routine. Mm-hmm. They get what to expect and how this is supposed to work. My daughter's got no clue. And it's just like, yeah, there's a big difference between where I would expect my daughter to be right now and where she is right now.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's a big strain. I mean, I've got 4 at home. So, I mean, my wife.
I don't know how your internet holds up, man. Seriously.
He keeps slamming those beers.
Yeah, I'm jealous.
I have fiber out here. So that's.
Hey, maybe with the slow internet, I've got 4 kids and I'm still working from home. It's working.
Yeah. No, so, I mean, it's holding up. But, my sister-in-law is a teacher, and the amount of work that they have to do to prep for some of these split situations where they've got kids that are remote, they've got kids that are in class. I mean, they're doing basically double the work right now. So, I mean, the amount of focus that even the teachers have is a lot lower than what they would be able to provide in a situation where everything is homogenous, where everybody's in school. Or even if everybody was fully remote, at least they'd only be doing one game plan. That's not the situation in a lot of places.
Yeah, I think I agree. Like hybrid is probably the worst of both worlds, where you don't get you're starting to create different groups that learn at different paces. Plus, you have to do work for both of them.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's definitely tough. And I mean, we've tried to mitigate it because I've got an 8-year-old. So, I mean, getting him on Zoom calls with friends and things like that are how we've been trying to do that. And, we also do a lot of Nerf gun wars during the day, just to keep things interesting. But it's, it's a tough age to be going through all this stuff.
Yeah. No, mine's are starting to the point where they know they know online. So for one of them, he is like, this is fine.
Yep. No, my 3-year-old, on the other hand, loves it. Everybody's home. Everybody's around to play with him. He's loving pandemic.
Oh my gosh. But yeah, so that, I mean, it is different. We'll see what happens. It is a little bit of a gambit on the big companies moving to Texas. There is how is that going to play out? Is it going to be like we move to Texas, everybody works remote from here on, and the company is comfortable doing that, or is it we move to Texas because it was a great opportunity? Everybody works from home, and then suddenly they have a change of heart, and it's like, no, we want to start bringing local talent. And having an office and a physical space again. And that dynamic will, will wreck the demographic of the reason you move out from San Francisco into it. So that'll be an interesting play. Let's put it that way. All right. So with that, let's go to our predictions for 2021. What's going to be big? What's going to be exciting? What excites you guys? I know what excites me.
I mean, so this is going to play into the questioning, your questioning of reactive, but Project Loom is my guess is why you're thinking reactive is getting poo-pooed on. So if you want to talk about that a little bit more, I put it on the agenda because I think it's huge. Talk about it.
No. So for those who don't know, like Project Loom is the idea to have lightweight threads, green threads. It has come for many names, and there have been libraries that sort of do this, where a thread of execution is not what we'll consider an actual hardware thread. Instead, it's sort of like this lightweight thing where it's almost a construct on the language that you create a thread and then you're consuming the thread, and when the thread needs to be parked or do something like that, you're just yielding for the same hardware thread to do work of another, essentially green thread or lightweight thread. And the idea is that for systems that support this natively, it scales very well. In the sense that usually one of the things is like context switching is expensive if you're doing it in hardware, and that's how the JVM up to 15. That's how JVM it does it. It's a real physical or real hardware thread that you have in. But the thing is that because of that overhead, we sort of start creating all these different techniques to manage it, right? And one of the things that we created was sort of like this sort of like reactive style programming where you are essentially trying to have these operations that are they're non-blocking. So nothing really blocks. So one hardware thread can quote unquote go all the way through your request, and then when there's an I operation, it's a non-blocking async sort of like callback where the thread just you handle it, you call us when you need to, and then just keeps picking up the other stuff. So this is a very explicit way of doing what Project Loom does. Now,
now reactive programming is more than just non-blocking, though. You're leaving out one of the probably the big difference between async non-blocking and reactive programming, which is back pressure.
There's so the concept of being able to but that I think the back pressure interest, it's interesting. Like for me, it's cool, but it's not as big as, for example, the performance penalty that I have for actually using,
because you're looking at it with it. You're looking at it
performance lens. Yeah.
Well, no, but you're also looking at it from a single JVM. Like when you talk about reactive and back pressure stuff, you're typically talking about distributed systems. You're thinking about RSocket and R2DBC, and where you're talking about 5 different microservices that have to talk to each other. The idea that one is going to get inundated because of the other one, like that back pressure mechanism is a real thing that can save a system.
But are there being answers? So that's interesting because and maybe this is why I don't think it's as important. It's because they have been answers to that already, right? Circuit breakers on the upstream, not quite as you can still jagged back pressure, but it is a way to manage back pressure, right? So but saying that I'm not going to use less threads, that requires, I guess the part of it is like the effort that you require to get rid of the threads is way, and the benefits you get from doing that is way. I think there's more benefits than that, or at least
you don't have to change. You don't have to change. You're using the same programming model, and you're getting some of the features like continuation and where they bring threads back to life, without paying as much of the penalty as you would if you were using live threads. So, I mean, there's a lot of things that we've done in computer science, which is, just make this thing look like the old thing that we're used to, and we'll just keep going down this path as long as we can. And that's what I think Loom is. It's catering to things that we already are comfortable with, things that we already kind of know how to do, because we have been doing reactive for a few years now, and it's frankly, it's still kind of hard.
It hurts.
There's no kind of about it. And that's what I was about to say is, if you can get to a point where you can do the things that reactive does, the back pressure and so forth, in a way that makes sense using an imperative style with Loom, that's going to make the reactive case a real hard sell. But until then,
we're still a year away.
The thing is, like, you're never. There's a reason Reactor just like replaced imperative programming, right? Like everybody said, it's hard. It's hard to write. It's hard to. It's a big shift in a programming model. It's hard to debug. Like there's plenty of like all the things you're looking for with regards to a modern system. It's still hard to do a lot of those things.
Yep.
We're probably going to get to a place where Loom enables a good chunk of those things, I think, pretty quickly.
No, and it's interesting because like on the projects that you know, we have the ability to create a couple of greenfield projects, which is probably the only place where you should really consider reactive instead of introducing it to an already running project, right? And from my experience, the interesting part is it's so easy to shoot yourself in the foot. Like you know, like if I'm writing the code, I'm, you know, like I sort of have the idea of what's going on. But if there is somebody who needs to, you know, like sometimes it happens, like there's somebody from a different team that needs to come in and do a small thing for their team because, you know, and because we have this sort of like open, like inner source governance model where people can actually come in, very easy to miss the nuance. And because it's very hard to debug, very hard to catch it on the code review as well. Onto the thing is actually, you know, committed. And then you start figuring out, it's like, oh, what's going on? Why did my performance tank? And then you see that somebody in a big sort of mesh call, they did or a big sort of like block of code in the middle of defining their modules, the flux, and the maps, they made an actual synchronized call in there, and which is very hard to like just perceive. So those are the things. The performance is amazing. Like that, I have to say that is great. People try to use thread local, then that does not work. Using context oh gosh. Using context on monos and stuff is also like this incantations and magic because they don't quite like nothing is obvious, like nothing. So going back to like and I know like I was reading like some like Dr. Hines was doing like a test, you know, and he managed to run like 2 million Loom threads on his machine. Like, oh yeah, they're running 2 million threads. And of course, right, like it was like, you know, it was as performant as he just created a non-Loom optimized program. But it was just like, oh my gosh, then you don't have to worry about any of this. Like you just create
there are, I mean, like there's pluses and minuses to that, right? Like Loom makes sense in CPU bound or processing bound operations, right? Like Loom isn't going to
because
Loom isn't going to help you in an IO bound situation. Like if I want to run Spring Bash partitions, I wouldn't run those in Loom virtual threads because like I can saturate the disk buffer with like 2 threads. I don't need 1,000 threads. It's that the context switching would kill this.
No, but like the IO bound side of it is for example, right, like informing you callbacks, right, like or that you don't have to you size a thread pool of size 20 and then you forget about it. Like it will work, you know. It's like you can be, you know, it's not a quote unquote like, you know, you can be sloppier or it's more forgiving for doing that kind of tuning. Like if you are like working with, you know, like I need to farm this out into a different thread pool, a lot of the things that come through your mind is like, what other thread pools are running out there? How many other, you know, IO or CPU bound things are out there? Like Loom allows me to like, you know what? I need this to be farm away from the current context. I'm just going to create a thread pool, put it on here. And then knowing that behind the scenes, Loom is going to be efficient and says like, oh, there's only 4 real threads, but they can do this much work. And I essentially, it's just the idiomatics of, I don't want you to preempt the current thread. Farm it out. You figure out how you run it. You figure out how to do it. It's a huge thing. Like again, you know, multi-threading, it's also, you know, it's not easy. And I think that one of the big things that we use multi-threading is for essentially sort of like moving work off the current thread, right? And even doing that, it requires you to coordinate with everybody else in your system who's doing it. Now with Loom, it's going to be way more forgiving in managing that complexity.
Yeah, I mean, for what I see and how it works is it IO bound or CPU bound? I think what matters is where are the interruptions and where can those switches happen that would normally be a thread context switch? And is it more lightweight for me to do a context switch in Loom to a thread that, hey, it can't make progress anyways because that IO is blocked on that task for X amount of seconds. Can I squeeze in some cycles here where I may not have been able to do that before? It's better utilizing the capacity that's there. So, I mean, tasks that are frequently interrupted are probably going to perform better in Loom than the ones that, hey, I just have one thing and it's just going to run continuously. They're not, I mean, that's not going to see any improvement with Loom because you're just going to be on a thread and it's going to run that thread.
It's going to be using the CPU.
End of time. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of this to be seen, and a lot of this, translates into another thing that we've got on the list is we do have 2 more Java releases scheduled for next year. So the hope is that one of those are going to have some of those Looms, and unlike this year, one of them is a long-term support release, which is 17.
Yep.
Wow. And I bet that they're probably targeting Loom for 17.
I hope so. Yeah. I mean, that gives them some time, but
some piece of it.
Yeah. I would honestly be surprised if they delivered Loom in 17. I think it's going to be a piece of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. No, that'll be exciting because this will be the first big carrot
release, right? Like,
the first real one with enough developer stuff to be like, hey,
you
should, this is fun.
You should really finally get off of 8. You really should finally get off of 8.
If you don't get off 8 by this release, what's the problem? Like,
I mean, that's I think that's the thing. It's like 11 didn't feel like there was enough there for developers to push that envelope.
Yeah.
If you can't justify getting off 8 with 17.
Yeah,
you're never moving.
You're a company that upgraded from 4 to 7, didn't you? No.
Only when Oracle raised their rates.
Yes, that's. Oh my gosh!
So we have Java 16 in March, though, right? It's March.
Yeah, first one's in March, and then the other one's in September, I think, or October.
Yep.
I think it's September.
Sounds right.
Yeah,
but the LTS is September.
Hopefully, we'll be seeing the release of that when we're at Oracle Code 1 in Las Vegas, right?
Ooh,
is it Las Vegas?
Has that been confirmed? Actually, I hadn't heard anything.
I don't know.
Okay.
I don't know.
It's going to be
Don't tease us, man. Don't tease us.
They did move it to Las Vegas last year. So, I mean, that would reason that they would have it in Vegas again.
Yeah.
Maybe they want to showcase the new offices. Yeah.
Move everything to Austin. Yeah. Actually, I've been to Austin. Austin's nice. They got good barbecue there.
I was about to say, good barbecue.
We know some people in Austin, so that's fun.
And on the heels of the Java release, we're expecting Spring 6 and Boot 3. So the 6 major versions of the Spring framework, and then the related Boot version as well.
Now, is Boot 3 just to align to the new Spring framework, or is there a... Okay.
We expect the Spring 6 will rebaseline in some capacity.
Let me plug my calendar for September then.
I'm going to raise my rate.
You get pre-Boot 3 rate, post-Boot 3 rate.
A lot of new stuff coming.
You probably could raise your rates if people are still running Java 8 when we get there.
Oh, yeah.
You just should.
Yeah.
Oh, gosh. If it's
Java
7,
rate,
double
Java
it.
17 rate.
It's kind of like the you go to when restaurants were open, you had the COVID fee that a lot of restaurants were adding. Because the extra sanitation and whatnot they got to do. You got the Java 8 tax that you got to add.
You're making you work.
Yep. But yeah, so Boot 6 and or Boot 3 and
Boot 6.
But honestly, I call it Spring Framework 6 and Boot 3, but like there's a whole collection of frameworks in between there, and I'm pretty sure they will all do major versions this year. So the entire portfolio. So like
but it's
5,
2.4 right now, right?
Spring Security 6. Yeah, 2.4 just came out couple weeks ago. Yeah, so like the whole shebang will be a major version this year.
Yeah, I might need to talk to you after this, because like we upgraded to one of our projects to 2.4, and we discovered some performance things that I'm still chasing down. We had to roll back, and I'm like, oh, come on! It's probably something silly that we're doing that Boot doesn't like, but it was surprising because most of the times.
Well, most of we put a lot of work into performance this past time, so it would surprise me if there was any regressions.
Well, I mean, maybe
Freddy's optimizations.
Yeah, no, it's like, why is he int I equals I? What is he doing that again? No, but yeah, so I'll chase it down. That was like one of my like to-do items. It's I'm on break, but yeah, no, but like and the good thing is like every time there is a print release, like it's mostly painless. Essentially. It essentially shuts down our or makes it easier to manage our vulnerability dependencies. Those that you have to add because there's a CVE out there. It's like, oh, okay, we need to upgrade those. And once we get a new Spring release, we can sort of like remove them again from the dependency tree because Spring is already bringing the latest one. So it's that's kind of nice.
Yep. One other thing related to this that I didn't put on the list, we're hoping to have some port for some sort of Graal support, Graal native image support for Spring apps this year. So that'll be really exciting.
That's a big deal.
Yeah,
it's so crazy. I want to, but we are so stuck. And actually that's an interesting question because what happened to us is like even when I was looking at Graal, the problem that I have is that even when it's a greenfield project, you still have to get into the bowels of the rest of what the organization uses for authentication, for standardization, and sometimes for like A/B testing, and sometimes these things are not essentially Graal VM friendly. Like they will use
in 2020/2021. I would argue that the decision between not using Graal and using Graal, I'm speaking native images specifically, is akin to whether or not you use Reactor and reactive programming in your app. Like you need that level of a justification to
go real. And that was the other thing. Like the one thing is like, for example, the thing I was super excited about was because I can start looking at where my startup where my startup time is being spent on being creation. And lo and behold, some of this stuff is really gnarly old Spring definitions that are still in XML that are like 3 pages long, and it's like, why do we do this, right? But the thing that I do look forward to Graal VM is that it does. If our applications takes too long to start, then you get sort of like the cloud, what they call the cloud police, when you get like all the healthy and active and sort of like saying like, oh, this state is not healthy, and then you sort of get this churn on VMs.
But using Graal to fix that problem,
it's like bring in like like a big hammer to shotgun to kill a mosquito.
Exactly. Yeah, I would not advocate that. I would not advocate. My app isn't starting up fast enough for my health indicators, so I'm going to switch to Graal native. Like, yeah, no.
If it is a drop in, well, okay, yeah. If it's a drop in, then it'll be fun to do. But
it's not.
Well, I mean, it's not. I mean, native images, like just to build them takes. I mean, something that would take seconds takes minutes. I mean, it's. Building a native image is not a quick process.
No, but like building is not a problem. Like
is
it's adjusting.
Well, then you got to test it.
Well, it's. I'm assuming Spring did that. So.
Well, not in your code, right? I don't know what bastardizations you've done.
It's not me. It's you.
Exactly.
No, but yeah, no,
Spring's a sharp knife. A lot of people cut themselves with it. I mean, it's.
No, and so that'll be the thing. Like we'll see what kind of like interdependencies like we have that we can do it. But like that build takes minutes. That's not an issue. It's mostly like how much do we have to pivot on this stuff that is not Graal VM friendly in the code. Like if we're using I don't think we're using like any JNI libraries for AI, but those will be like the questions that I'll have. All right. Well,
Cool.
It's coming up, so it's gonna be fun. My September is booked.
Yeah, and I don't know. I was trying to look, but I'm not exactly sure what the release date on Jakarta EE 10 is. I'm going to suspect, though, even if there is a release date on
There
the
is not
books,
yet.
it's
I just
probably
looked at it
not
the other
going to
day.
make
There's
it.
not a release date yet.
Yeah, I don't think there is one. So that would lead me to believe that we're either looking at 2021 or early 2022. But we'll see. Let's see. I'm going to hope that 2021. And my hope is that they do some small, big changes, nothing too major, because then it will take a lot longer to release.
It's almost like warming up the engine now that you did the moving off the JCP. You got the name change. It's all ready. Let's start like, getting traction and new stuff. So yeah, that's what you don't have to worry about. By the time that Jakarta EE is out, Loom will be there. You don't even have to worry about any of the reactive stuff. So.
Oh yeah, that's right. Yep.
It'll all be deprecated.
Yeah, it's like, I spent all this time doing this.
And then probably the most important thing.
Tell that to Lightbend.
Until Lightbend.
A whole company based on that.
I was going to say one of the most important things for 2021 would be hopefully in-person conferences again at some point.
Could use that.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I hope. Even though my doctor was saying like, oh, this pandemic is going to finish in 2022. That was his prediction. But yeah,
time
hopefully.
will tell.
Yeah.
We'll see.
Yep.
So, are we done with the looking forward?
I think
Yeah,
so.
I think we got a lot to look forward to in 2021.
More toys.
I mean,
Better times.
Yep.
Definitely, I would really hope better times. Yeah.
One thing I wanted to make sure I mentioned here before we head out was everybody should take a look at this JVM Advent Calendar if you have a chance, because what we have here is a new article written on some Java tech every day in December. So not only does it make for something nice to drop in your email every day, but also you'll learn something along the way. I definitely read a few of these, and they're good, and I picked up some good tips and tricks and learned a couple of new techniques and new things. So
increase your yearly income as a Java developer. Ooh, I gotta read this one.
Ooh.
Okay, you officially have my attention.
I like this one, helping Santa Claus with a Spring Boot microservice. So we've got some good people writing for the JVM Advent Calendar too, it looks like. So
Yeah.
yep. So check it out.
Marcus. All right.
Good stuff.
Well, it's been a fun packed episode. Is to just cap off the year. Everybody, I think, stay safe, have safe celebrations, and then we'll see you probably the next year. It's the same crew, same place online, and that's it. That's all what I have for this episode. This is Freddie signing off.
All right, Bob signing off. Goodbye, 2020.
Yep.
Josh signing off. Happy New Year.
Michael signing off. Happy holidays, and follow us on Twitter @on.
Perfect. See you, everyone.